Smoke rises over the Donetsk horizon. The ground trembles with the thunder of artillery. Russian troops crawl forward through mud and ruins, while Ukrainian drones hum overhead, scanning, locking, and striking. Every explosion lights the night like a desperate heartbeat. How many more lives must be fed into this inferno before someone calls it victory? For months, the battle for Pokrovsk has become the most brutal contest of the war, a fight not for territory alone, but for endurance. Russia pushes forward yard by yard, losing hundreds of soldiers each day. Ukraine, armed with precision drones, special forces, and intelligence supplied through its Western partners, makes every Russian gain bleed red. According to recent updates from Reuters and BBC, the area around Pokrovsk has become a grinding vortex where entire Russian battalions vanish within days. The Kremlin's objective remains unchanged: take Pokrovsk, the gateway to the Donetsk logistical corridor and the symbolic heart of eastern Ukraine's resistance. Yet Moscow's offensive, which began as a show of strength, now resembles a funeral march. Defense News reports that Russia's so-called summer storm offensive has stalled, turning into what Western analysts describe as an attrition campaign of desperation. Strategically, this is not just another city siege. Pokrovsk represents a test of modern hybrid warfare, where drones, satellite intel, and rapid mobility matter more than raw numbers. Ukraine's defense intelligence, the HUR, has transformed the battlefield into a data-driven war lab. Jane's Defense Weekly notes that their micro-encirclement tactics and swarm drone strikes have neutralized Russia's manpower advantage, catching entire platoons in kill zones before they can reinforce. Each retaken village near Pokrovsk, from Kuturov Yar to Dobropilya, breaks another link in Russia's encirclement chain. But this struggle echoes beyond Ukraine's borders. In Israel, drone-guided precision strikes dominate the skies over southern Lebanon and Iranian proxies in Syria. In the South China Sea, the US Navy's digital command structure tracks every Chinese sortie near Taiwan. Each of these fronts reflects the same global truth: artificial intelligence and networked warfare now decide the fate of nations faster than diplomacy ever could. And yet, amid all the technology, the cost remains human. The Guardian recently reported on exhausted Ukrainian medics working 20-hour shifts under fire, treating soldiers and civilians in underground bunkers beneath Pokrovsk. In the mud and smoke, they whisper one question that resonates across every front line, from Donetsk to Gaza, from Taiwan to Tehran. How much more blood must be spilled for a single city? As dawn breaks over the shattered skyline of Pokrovsk, one thing becomes clear: this is no longer about maps or borders. It's about endurance, pride, and the limits of human sacrifice. The world watches, America watches, but as the battle tightens and casualties rise, one question lingers: will this brutal push define the next phase of global war, or the moment humanity finally learns to stop chasing victory through ruin? The night of October 31st, a cold wind swept across the fields near Pokrovsk as the roar of rotor blades cut through the silence. Helicopters from Ukraine's defense intelligence, the HUR, flew low, hugging the terrain. Their mission: retake ground that Russia had already declared conquered. Within minutes, paratroopers descended into Kuturov Yar, a village thought lost. In reality, it was about to become a symbol of Ukraine's defiance. According to BBC and United 24 reports, this was not a conventional military push. It was a high-risk, high-reward operation combining intelligence, warfare, special forces, and coordinated drone strikes. The objective was simple but daring: break the encirclement Russia had spent months building and crush its momentum before winter. HUR Commander Kirill Budanov himself oversaw the assault, signaling its importance. The air filled with tracer rounds and drone signals. On the ground, Ukrainian soldiers advanced house to house, clearing bunkers and recovering their own dead from earlier battles. By dawn, the Ukrainian flag flew again over Kuturov Yar. Drone footage later released by Forbes showed 50 Russian soldiers surrendering, disoriented, cut off, and surrounded. Al Jazeera confirmed that these surrenders reflected a growing pattern: Russian soldiers abandoned by command, starving, and demoralized. The liberation of Kuturov Yar was not just a tactical victory. It exposed a systemic flaw in Russia's approach: an army chasing symbolic gains while ignoring the fundamentals of modern logistics. Strategically, Pokrovsk now stands as the microcosm of the wider war. Russia still relies on sheer numbers and shock tactics, the so-called meat wave strategy, while Ukraine employs precision mobility and data. As reported by DW, Ukrainian forces are using AI-assisted drones that can detect thermal signatures of Russian soldiers hiding in trenches, then coordinate artillery within seconds. This evolution marks a shift from manpower to machine power, and Moscow is struggling to adapt. Globally, the implications ripple outward. In the Middle East, similar HUR-style raids are mirrored by Israeli intelligence operations targeting Iranian supply chains across Syria and Lebanon. Meanwhile, in the Indo-Pacific, the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command under President Trump has intensified electronic warfare exercises around the South China Sea. Defense News notes a sharp rise in joint drills between the U.S. and its Asian allies, a clear signal that hybrid operations like those in Pokrovsk are redefining 21st century conflict. But amid these shifting doctrines lies the human cost. In the liberated village, 10 Ukrainian civilians trapped for months under Russian shelling were finally evacuated by air. As reported by The Guardian, the rescue took place under direct fire, coordinated by drone pilots guiding the helicopters through smoke and debris. One of those rescued a young woman clutching a tattered photograph, whispered to reporters they said Russia had already won here. But I never saw victory, only graves. Her words cut deeper than any battlefield statistic. Every inch reclaimed by Ukraine is bought with blood, both soldier and civilian. The question for strategists and leaders now isn't just how to win, but how long nations can sustain wars that burn through generations in months. As the world debates strategy, Ukraine keeps moving. The helicopters return to base, their pilots silent. The operation's success proves one thing: intelligence and courage can outmatch even overwhelming numbers. But will that still be true as winter closes in and Russia sends tens of thousands more into the fire? The ruins of Kuturov Yar still smolder when the next push begins. Ukrainian paratroopers, the same elite air assault troops who liberated the village, prepare to strike again. This time, the targets are Zadyshak and Shcheketska, two more settlements Russia seized in August. Under a pale gray sky, the assault begins. The sound of artillery merges with the buzzing of drones, and in minutes, entire Russian outposts vanish in smoke. Euromaidan Press reports that Ukraine's counterattack unfolds with surgical precision. Drone scouts map Russian positions while assault teams advance street by street. The coordination is brutal, and efficient reconnaissance drones feed data directly to mobile artillery units. Within hours, the defenders crumble. By nightfall, Zadyshak falls. By dawn, Shcheketska follows. Dozens of Russian soldiers lie dead, and 7 more are taken prisoner. The once ambitious Russian encirclement collapses into chaos. For Ukraine, these victories are more than tactical, they are psychological. Forbes writes that retaking these villages not only boosts morale, but restores critical logistical corridors leading toward Dobropilya and the Pokrovsk defense line. Russia's offensive tempo slows its strategy exposed. Each liberated settlement sends a message: Moscow's summer advance is no longer sustainable. But this fight isn't just about geography, it's about adaptation. Ukraine has evolved from conventional defense to asymmetric precision warfare. Its battlefield AI learns from every engagement, analyzing drone footage to anticipate Russian counterattacks. Jane's Defense Weekly notes that Ukraine's hybrid strategy now blends classic paratrooper maneuvers with algorithmic targeting systems, a battlefield transformation unseen in Europe since World War II. Meanwhile, Russia clings to an outdated doctrine. Its commanders continue throwing infantry waves without armor motorcycles replacing tanks and radios replaced by chaos. The result: soldiers stranded without supplies, morale, or leadership. Al Jazeera confirms that Moscow's reliance on meat tactics is eroding its own army faster than Ukraine's firepower ever could. Globally, the same imbalance appears elsewhere. In the Middle East, Iran's militias face Israeli precision airstrikes that mirror Ukraine's drone tactics. In Asia, US-China tensions near Taiwan show similar lessons. Overwhelming force means little without coordination. The Pentagon's Pacific Command, operating under President Trump, now studies Pokrovsk as a case study in modern attrition, teaching how small intelligent forces can dismantle a numerically superior enemy. But beyond geopolitics, the cost is carved into the faces of those on the ground. Civilians who survived in basements for weeks emerge into villages reduced to ash. DW reports that elderly residents walk past burnt homes, searching for names on doorframes, hoping someone lived. A Ukrainian medic tells a correspondent, "We patch soldiers in the same rooms where children used to study. Every drone strike that saves a unit of soldiers still echoes in the silence of lost lives." As Ukraine pushes forward, one question grows louder. How long can either side sustain this pace of destruction? Russia bleeds bodies. Ukraine bleeds strength. The battle for Pokrovsk has become a test of who can endure not just militarily, but morally. And in the eerie calm after victory, when the gunfire fades and the smoke settles, one truth emerges. Each liberated village is both a triumph and a warning. If every inch of progress demands rivers of blood, what will the final price of Pokrovsk be, and who will still be standing to claim it? The Pokrovsk front is now a landscape of ruin, blackened soil, twisted armor, and silence broken only by the whir of drones. Russia calls it progress. Ukraine calls it a graveyard. The meat grinder strategy has returned, and it is devouring Moscow's own army. Reuters confirms that Russian forces have adopted relentless frontal assaults, human waves of undertrained troops rushing across open fields without armor. Each offensive costs dozens, sometimes hundreds of lives. The Peaky Blinders unit of Ukraine's army released chilling drone footage, charred Russian bodies scattered across fields, frozen mid-charge, their assault crushed before it began. They send them with meat, not with tactics, one Ukrainian commander told BBC News. This is not warfare, it is slaughter. Ukraine repels 36 of 38 assaults in a single day, according to Euromaidan Press. Each failed attack exposes the same fatal flaw: small breakthroughs, no reinforcements, no armor, no logistics. Russia's commanders try to hold captured ground, but within hours, Ukrainian drones swarm over the positions, dropping munitions and marking coordinates for artillery. In a matter of minutes, the conquered territory becomes a kill zone. Defense News reports that these losses have reached catastrophic proportions, surpassing even those of Russia's early 2022 campaigns. Commanders in Moscow still celebrate minor gains, a trench line, a hill, but each is erased by precision drone strikes. It's a pattern of futility that military analysts call suicidal attrition. The parallels stretch far beyond Ukraine. In Gaza and southern Lebanon, Iranian-backed units face the same nightmare low-tech troops confronting precision-guided munitions and real-time intelligence. In the Pacific, Chinese warships test U.S. surveillance limits near the Taiwan Strait, only to find themselves shadowed by AI-driven reconnaissance systems. The global battlefield has changed, and Pokrovsk is its mirror. But there's another war unfolding, one of morale. Al Jazeera recently published testimonies from Russian prisoners of war near Pokrovsk. Many describe being abandoned by their commanders, denied medical aid, or executed for retreating. This chaos within the Russian ranks mirrors the desperation of a state running out of trained men. Jane's Defense Weekly reports that entire battalions now consist of convicts and conscripts with less than 3 weeks of training. And yet Ukraine pays its own price. Soldiers rotate through the front for only a few days at a time. DW documented units fighting on zero sleep, re-entering trenches filled with the frozen remains of their comrades. Every inch costs us something, a brother, a friend, said one young Ukrainian officer. The world watches the slaughter through screens, but few understand the scale. Western experts warn that Russia's meat strategy could still overwhelm defenses simply by numbers. The Guardian notes that Putin's doctrine has become one of pure attrition, trading human life for psychological pressure. It is a doctrine built not on strategy, but on cruelty. And yet, amid the madness, one question burns through the smoke: how long can a superpower sustain a war fought with its own dead? Each failed assault deepens the moral collapse of Russia's army and strengthens Ukraine's resolve. The road to Pokrovsk may be paved with bodies, but it is also paved with the truth that numbers alone cannot win a modern war. Still, as night falls and drones return to base, both sides prepare for dawn. The machines recharge, the soldiers reload, and the earth waits for another sunrise of fire. In this grinding war of attrition, will strategy or sheer survival decide who claims the city that now stands as a monument to madness? The numbers tell a story darker than any battlefield image. 1 week in Pokrovsk, 226 Russian soldiers killed 23 armored vehicles, destroyed 226 drones, downed 39 artillery systems, neutralized. That's just 1 week. Multiply it across the summer and the toll becomes incomprehensible. Reuters confirms that by late October, Russia had lost over 100,000 men killed or wounded in its 2025 Pokrovsk offensive. Captured Russian documents analyzed by Defense News reveal staggering internal figures: 87,000 dead between January and September, $160,000 wounded, and $34,000 missing. Many of those missing are presumed buried in collapsed trenches or incinerated beyond recovery. It's a level of loss not seen in Europe since World War II. This is the cost of Putin's obsession. Pokrovsk, a city meant to fall in June, still stands defiant in November. BBC analysts call it Russia's bleeding mirror, reflecting the limits of brute force against modern intelligence warfare. Every failed assault consumes more soldiers, vehicles, and morale, but Putin presses on. Why? Because turning back would mean admitting the war is unwinnable. Strategically, this is not just about Pokrovsk, it's about the myth of Russian invincibility. The Guardian reports that Putin has ordered his generals to deliver victory at any cost, even setting an impossible deadline mid-November. His obsession with symbolic dates over realistic planning mirrors the Soviet-era delusion of political warfare where propaganda dictates strategy. And yet, Ukraine's resistance transforms this bloodletting into a tactical trap. The 1st Azov Corps deployed around Pokrovsk uses predictive analytics to anticipate where Russia will attack next, allowing Ukraine to counterstrike before the enemy reaches its objective. It's a brutal chess game where every Russian move has already been calculated and every inch of ground regained is a coffin nailed shut. Globally, the reverberations are unmistakable. In Tehran, the Revolutionary Guard studies Russian losses as a cautionary tale. In Beijing, military scholars quietly adjust their invasion models for Taiwan after watching Moscow's manpower advantage dissolve in the mud of Donetsk. Even in Washington Pentagon, strategists see Pokrovsk as proof that AI-driven defense networks can offset numerical inferiority, a principle shaping the Trump administration's forward defense doctrine. But statistics don't capture the faces. DW reports that Ukrainian morgues overflow their freezers running non-stop. Russian Telegram channels post images of mothers receiving the same message over and over: your son is missing in action. Al Jazeera describes convoys of black body bags leaving Donetsk under cover of night. Numbers fade, but grief endures. Still, there's a grim symmetry in this arithmetic of death. Each Russian battalion lost means one less to send elsewhere, one less to threaten Kharkiv, Odessa, or NATO's eastern flank. Jane's Defense Weekly concludes that Russia's staggering losses at Pokrovsk have weakened its entire southern front, forcing Moscow to divert reserves from Crimea and Zaporizhzhia. And yet, victory feels hollow. For Ukraine, holding Pokrovsk means surviving under constant bombardment. For Russia, the battle has become a symbol of pride too costly to win. The question for the world is no longer who will take Pokrovsk, but what the victory will even mean if both armies are left shattered. As the casualty lists grow, the moral reckoning begins. Can any political goal justify this scale of sacrifice? Can national glory outweigh the ruin of a generation? The answers lie buried somewhere beneath the ruins of Pokrovsk, alongside the soldiers who died chasing them. The Kremlin burns with impatience. According to The Guardian, Vladimir Putin has ordered his generals to seize Pokrovsk before mid-November, a deadline that even his own officers quietly call a fantasy. Yet Russian columns keep moving. Reinforcements pour in. 170,000 troops now concentrated along the Pokrovsk axis, nearly triple the numbers from the summer. It is not strategy, it is desperation. President Trump, speaking from the White House, has reaffirmed continued logistical intelligence support for Kyiv through NATO, though Washington remains cautious about direct escalation. The Pentagon's latest assessment, reported by Reuters, calls Pokrovsk a crucible of 21st century warfare drones, AI, and attrition clashing in one of the deadliest urban battles since Mosul. But Trump's team warns even victory can hollow out a nation if it costs its future. Inside Ukraine, Special Forces teams from Shuar and the 1st Azov Corps continue to fight street by street. BBC reporters embedded near the front describe entire city blocks collapsing under missile strikes. The air smells of concrete dust and fuel. The wounded are pulled from basements where they've hidden for weeks. Commander Oleksandr Syrsky tells DW, "We are holding Pokrovsk. Every block, every stairwell." His words echo through a city that has become both fortress and graveyard. Strategically, the stakes could not be higher. Control of Pokrovsk means control of Donetsk's logistical corridor, the supply artery linking eastern Ukraine to the Dnipro defense line. For Russia, capturing it would open the road to Kramatorsk and potentially fracture Ukraine's interior defenses. For Ukraine, losing it would unravel years of hard-fought resilience. Defense News notes that NATO planners now view Pokrovsk as the hinge point of the Eastern War, the line between survival and collapse. Beyond Ukraine, echoes of Pokrovsk shape global theaters. In the Persian Gulf, Iran tests hypersonic prototypes as Israel counters with new drone defense grids. In the Pacific, the US Navy intensifies joint drills near the Spratly Islands to deter China's encroachments. Every region now mirrors the same contest: man versus machine pride versus precision politics versus humanity. The world's flashpoints may differ, but the script feels eerily familiar. Great powers playing chicken with catastrophe. And amid this storm, civilians remain trapped in the crossfire. The Guardian recounts families living in subway tunnels beneath Pokrovsk, children tracing their names on dust-covered walls. Supplies are airdropped by drones, not angels. They wait for silence that never comes. In one clip shared by Al Jazeera, a medic weeps as she treats a Russian prisoner and a Ukrainian soldier side by side. They both called for their mother, she says. It is a reminder that wars are fought by humans, but decided by those far removed from the smell of blood and dust. As President Trump's administration balances deterrence and diplomacy, Europe braces for another winter of energy shortages and refugee flows. Meanwhile, Putin gambles his empire's future for a single name on a map. Pokrovsk has become the new Stalingrad, not for its outcome, but for its symbolism. It marks the point where hubris meets resistance, where armies learn that dominance cannot be measured by body counts. When the final shot fades, neither side will truly have won. The question that remains is simple and terrifying. How many more Pokrovsk must burn before the world understands that no one conquers ashes? The battle for Pokrovsk encapsulates the entire tragedy of the Ukraine-Russia war in 2025, a relentless confrontation where technology, endurance, and human will collide. Russia's vast manpower advantage, estimated at 8-1, has failed to secure victory. Ukraine's intelligence-led defense, powered by drones and special forces, transformed the battlefield into a trap for invaders. Over 100,000 Russian casualties mark the cost of Putin's obsession, while Ukraine continues to hold its ground through innovation and grit. Globally, the lessons reverberate. Hybrid warfare now defines power, from Israel's drone wars to US-China standoffs in the Pacific. Yet beyond geopolitics, Pokrovsk's ruins testify to the enduring price of ambition. Civilians cower underground. Soldiers fight for inches of earth that will soon be dust again. The city stands not just as a fortress, but as a warning that even in an age of intelligent machines, humanity's oldest flaw remains